You're listening to Shark Bone. This is episode 4, being recorded Monday, April 5th, 2010. My name is Devin.
And I'm Jarvis.
And welcome to the show.
Woohoo!
Yes! Today, our GM Garden topic is the movie Paycheck from 2003 with Ben Affleck and Uma Thurman, directed by John Woo.
Absolutely. I did see a white dove in the movie Paycheck. I didn't think there were any, and that's kind of John Woo's trademark for the doves to come out during the action scenes.
Okay.
And I did see one.
I didn't know that. I really don't follow actors or directors or anything. I just decided that I would like to share that information this time, because we haven't.
Sure. I was actually going to do it if you didn't, so kudos.
All right. Well, we're on the same page. That's good. So I thought this movie was great.
It's an awesome movie.
One of my favorite movies for a long, long time.
It's kind of it's got some action bits. It's kind of cyberpunky.
Yeah.
Kind of sci-fi.
It is.
Has some interesting moral elements with changing the future, if you know what the future is going to be. That's kind of cool.
Yeah. It was really cool. I enjoyed it. I haven't watched it for years, I think. So when I finally picked it for the show, I was like, oh, I get to watch the movie again for the first time in like 3 years.
Yeah, it's been a while since I've seen it.
So let's see here. What was the main thing that stood out for you about what you could take out of this movie for a gaming story?
Well, I thought of one thing. Well, there's a couple issues. I think issue number one would be lots of innocuous items, regular everyday things that become useful later. Because that's a pretty old trope. So from like the fantasy movies that we grew up on, you always got the amulet that was passed by your mother, and surely it's just a trinket and doesn't actually have any significance, but then that amulet is actually the, source of all power and goodness in the universe.
Right. It's the key to open the door that you have to get through. You're going to die.
That's actually the One Ring, if you think about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it's just it's like a little trinket given to him by his Uncle Bilbo, and he hands him this ring, and he's like, oh, it might do you a favor once in a while, because it's got some neat invisibility effects. And then all of a sudden, there's the whole focus of the adventure.
Yep.
So I thought of that, and then I also thought of the changing the future bit.
Changing the future?
Yeah, when your character has seen a glimpse of the future, and so he can struggle against and try to change it, and then does that actually make the future happen just like he saw, or can you resist it? So the, not really time travel, but future glimpsing prophecy aspect of the movie.
It could just be a prophecy. It doesn't have to be seeing the future.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's one of the things that I noted down. It would be cool. Your main characters have that prophecy or that main glimpse of the future, and they're doing whatever they want to do with it. And there's, I really liked the organization, Allcorp, I think they're called. Allcom.
Yeah.
Yeah. They know the same thing that the main characters knew. Uh-huh. They just didn't want anyone else to know. Uh-huh. So they were chasing them down. I thought that was really cool. That would be something really fun to do in a game.
All right. What would be fun to do in a game? What do you mean? Let's see. Your characters, through whatever reasons, whether it be just they had a job to do, they came across this spell scroll, just whatever. It doesn't have to be anything major, just something minor. And all of a sudden they have this windfall of knowledge of what's going to happen in the future. Okay. So they might start taking advantage of it, might start, betting on the winning team that they know is going to win. Sure. And they're enjoying this knowledge that they have of the future. And all of a sudden, whoever it is, it could be Billy the Mafia guy from Las Vegas, comes up and says, I'm going to need that thing back that tells you what's going to happen. And they're like, no, we found it. And he's like, yeah, but it's mine. I made it, and you're screwing everything up for me. So give it back or I'm going to kill you. That's interesting. From, like, a lot of games have abilities where, this class or this character build can have some future-seeing opportunities, or they can glean some information from the future. So as they use that to, fight off your bad guys, it would be interesting to bring in bad guys that had the same
future seeing possibilities, and as the PCs show up for to wipe out yet another evil army, turns out the army is ready for them because they knew they were coming.
Yeah, that would be cool.
So yeah, that would be kind of cool. I like the idea that prophecy and things like that are two-way streets. You know, that the visionary or the ability to see the future, it doesn't necessarily have to be confined to one character, one special character.
Yeah, that's really cool. I really liked how the Jimmy character, the main bad guy, he was also looking into the future. That was really cool.
Yes.
It made he's like, I've already seen how you die.
Yes.
So, what are you fighting for? You're going to die. You can't change it.
There's something that is interesting for gaming potential, is having, what would it be like to run a game, 4 characters or for your character if you were the player, and know the way that character is going to end?
I would love that.
You would. That's your style, though.
Yeah. Yeah, it really is.
But I think that would be kind of interesting maybe to see his death, or maybe to see his success. But it would be interesting to set up a character and say, this character is going to be killed by a dragon.
You know what?
Let's see what happens until that point.
It doesn't even have to be the character's demise. It could be some major event that's going to happen to that character in the future. So the player is always going to be looking for that event. They're like, is it going to happen now? And it's similar, but it doesn't happen quite the way that it was foretold. And they're like, I wonder where it's going to happen. That would be really cool because I think it would give the player something to look forward to. They know something's going to happen and they're just waiting for it.
In the game Hellas, written by the very cool Jerry Grayson.
Right.
Among others, he had a buddy too. I don't remember that guy's name. Of course,
Michael Feigl, something like that. I've been reading.
Maybe. Vogel was in my head. I don't know.
It starts with an F.
All right. Who cares?
Look it up.
Who cares? So, in this game, Hellas, it's about Greek heroes, and so it's all about doing epic, heroic things. And one thing that's really cool in the game is that you have, basically a destiny.
Right.
And a fate, a dark fate. And one of the two will probably happen to your character. It is possible for you to just die a meaningless, sad, pathetic death. But if you're good and you push yourself, you will either succumb to your dark fate or you will achieve your destiny. Those are both, I'm trying to remember if they're actually chosen by the player.
I think they might be. It might be a role that you do that character creation.
Actually, I know the destiny was chosen because I chose that myself. The dark fate might be rolled.
It might be
on like a life chart. What do you call those things?
Life path.
Life path system. Yes.
Yeah.
But so it would be very interesting to say, okay, here, make a character and give me, the prophecy about the great thing he's going to accomplish, and give me the dark prophecy about the terrible fate that's going to befall him.
That would be awesome.
And you can make it whatever you want, and I, as the GM, will guarantee that one of the two will happen.
I like that.
That's pretty cool.
Be awesome.
Because then you have a little bit of control over, here's what's going to happen to me. So I'm going to achieve greatness and become the emperor of the New World Order, or I'm going to be assassinated by a loved one. Or something by my true love. But you don't know which one's going to happen. So you don't know when, and things could, he could introduce an NPC, that is, maybe this, ambitious woman character who starts encouraging you to become this emperor of this new world order, and you're like, oh yeah, that's the destiny. That's the path that's going to come true. All right, I'm going to be the emperor.
And stabs you in the back.
And then she marries you and stabs you in the back. And it turns out it was the other destiny at all. But it's interesting because it gives the GM a lot to work with, but you still get to create those two options as a player.
Yeah.
That's kind of cool.
That is cool. I like that.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to do that someday.
That would be fun, especially in a high magic, epic destiny type setting, whether it be Hellas, like, Greeks always had prophecies about what was going to happen to them and, things like that. And even, Beowulf, there's a little bit of tone in a lot of the Celtic myths and, Old English stuff. There's heroes kind of have legends and these things are going to happen. I think King Arthur even had something similar like that.
Maybe.
Where there was like a prophecy or whatever about what was going to happen to him at the end.
Okay.
So it's very interesting to see heroes either strive for their greatness that they're promised or struggle against that demise, trying to disprove it constantly.
That even might make high-level D&D games fun.
I think it would.
Yeah, because you're this humongously powerful person who there really isn't a whole lot in the world that can defeat you, but then you have those two things, those destiny and that fate. That would be a lot of fun.
And that's a cool way for the player to say, here, GM, here's a trump card. You can pull this out anytime you want. No dice need be rolled, because either of these two ends are okay. And as long as you give me one of them, because I've chosen it, so as long as you give me one of them, I'm happy. So it doesn't matter what my hit points are or how hard I am to attack or whatever. When it comes time and you want that loved one to stab me in the back, so be it. That's kind of cool.
That's really cool. I'm excited for that.
That would be pretty fun. Yeah, I might have to try something like that sometime.
One of the other things that I thought was really cool in Paycheck was how his memory was erased.
Oh, yeah.
That would be really cool to work into a story as well.
Yeah, what made you, because that didn't even occur to me as something that could be worked into a game. So what are you thinking?
Well, I actually don't have any concrete ideas. I know I've tried when I ran the Hunter game.
Yes.
I tried to do a flashback mechanic when they encountered for any of those who don't know, in the World of Darkness, werewolves have something that's called lunacy. So any normal human that sees them flip out and turn into a werewolf, the human mind just can't take that. No. And it just blocks everything out and they go crazy. So hunters are normal humans, and the hunter group, they encountered a werewolf who flipped out and raged. And so the game just blacked out at that point. As soon as the werewolf changed, the game blacked out and they woke up in a hospital room.
Yes.
So they had to kind of think back and build up, through fragmented memories, what actually happened. And I had no idea what happened as a GM. And so I had these little flashback cards with, questions of, who did this? And so a character would pull that card and be like, I seem to remember this happened. And so we kind of formed or filled in that blank space. But when I did it, it seemed kind of shaky. And maybe it was just because it was the first time any of us had ever tried something like that.
I mean, it was a fascinating technique, and it was a lot of fun in the game as a player. I had a blast. I think it could definitely be something that could benefit from taking a look at it again in the future and trying to refine it, maybe.
Yeah.
But it works really well as is. But you're talking about memory loss in a game.
Yeah, how could we pull that effectively? You are at a point where you can't remember something that happened that's really important, and you need to work backwards to figure out what happened in that blank space in your memory. How would you do that?
Well, I mean, that would almost be, you could do it like any detective story, where in any detective story and in a lot of games, they have their own techniques, and I know you're reading Mutant City Blues right now.
Yeah.
But in a lot of games, they have their own investigative sub-rules, or subsystems within the game, and this is how an investigation happens. So if you get to a crime scene and you're trying to piece together what happened, that's very little different from, I don't remember where I was last night, what happened?
Right.
As you're trying to piece together the clues. Kind of like the movie Hangover or something.
I haven't seen Hangover.
Oh, okay. I had a really bad hangover. They don't remember what happened to them. So they're trying to walk backwards and piece together the night because the groom is missing or something.
All right, that makes sense.
So you could totally do something like that, and maybe a character like an NPC baddie or something, slips a memory loss potion or vial or something to a PC.
Right.
And then he's trying to piece together, just by using investigation and his clues and things.
Okay.
He's following what he knows backwards. That would be interesting.
That would be. Every scene has a clue or something in it that would kind of spark their memory, and then they get a little scene or something that they remember.
What if you had a villain that's, maybe he has mind erasing powers, like some mutant ability or something, or maybe it's just a drug that makes you forget, or too much alcohol or something. So he laces this and gives you some memory loss as you kind of black out for a while, or as the PC blacks out for a while. And the PC wakes up the next day, 2 days later. What happened? Weird. He goes into town. Town freaks out. And they call him a murderer and all this other stuff. So then the PC, as he's trying to put together what happened, all these people they saw him murder this guy, and he's like, oh my god, why would I have murdered that guy?
Right.
And maybe the villain took that opportunity to like dress up or do an illusion spell or something to pretend to be the PC.
That could be fun.
And go do all these murders or terrible, terrible things.
Right.
And then as the PC comes back, now he's the one that's, it would be a great way if you have a villain that's set up and, everybody kind of knows he's the villain or he's been around, or the PCs know he's a villain. That would be an interesting way for him to strike a blow against the hero's reputation so that maybe they don't get the support of the people anymore. And they have to worry about law enforcement and everything else.
That's a good thing for a villain to do anyway, because it's not that frontal attack that's so cliche.
Absolutely. Yeah, you don't just send another wave of minions.
Yeah.
You turn the townsfolk against them. That would be kind of cool.
It would be. That'd be very cool.
And if you played it a little looser, then maybe, maybe it turns out it was the villain with some illusion spell, or he created an image. He just dressed up in the same armor that your PC wears or something and killed a bunch of innocents. Or if you're a more think-on-your-feet sandbox-style GM, then maybe as you play, if good ideas come to your head, or if the PC starts to say, oh, I hope this didn't happen, then maybe you can change the story as you go and turn out like you can think of a few reasons while you're playing where it actually was the PC and that actually did happen.
That could be fun, too.
That would be very cool.
He'd wonder why he did that evil thing and why he can't remember it.
Yeah.
That would be a lot of fun.
Because maybe he kills a bunch of innocents, and he's like, why did I kill all the orphans at the school or something? And then he only finds out later that all the orphans were demon-possessed and so of course he would have killed them all.
Of course.
But he didn't remember it. Yeah. And the townsfolk don't know that. That would be cool.
That would be cool. Especially if you had to defend himself in some court of law or some inquiry or something.
Or if the mob comes after him.
I don't know.
Yeah. Then is he fighting off with lethal force, the mob who, they're just trying to arrest the crazy murderer guy. And then maybe he fights them off with lethal force and he actually kind of becomes the crazy murderer guy that they think he is. Interesting.
That could be a lot of fun. Let's see. What were some of the other items I have? One thing I thought that was really cool that I thought would also be really cool. Whenever you're in a game, you present a plot twist or a plot hook for your players, and the players grab onto it. The way that Jimmy offered the plot hook of the Paycheck story to, what was his name?
The main character?
Ben Affleck's character? Yeah, what was his name? I don't remember.
Damn, I don't know.
I don't remember, and I didn't write it down. Anyways, so the main bad guy is friends with the main good guy, and he says, hey, I've got this job for you. I promise it'll give you 8 figures. Nothing can go wrong with this. It's just going to be, you're going to erase 3 years of your life instead of 8 weeks. So it was an offer he couldn't bear to refuse. He was just like, I want that money. I don't care about the time.
Because it was going to be his last job.
Yeah.
And then he wouldn't have to do any more. So what makes you think that can be used in a game?
I just thought it was cool. It was a novel way to present a plot hook instead of saying, hey, I'll pay you 1,000 gold pieces if you go do this. Or saying, hey, you work for me, go and do this.
Okay.
Or I'm your commanding officer, you need to go over here and go do this. It would be, I think it would be awesome if the GM knew each character and knew their motivations and knew what they really, really wanted. And then just gave them, put on the table exactly what they wanted and said, here, this is what I'll give you, but the price is 10 times what it normally would be, what it's going to cost the characters to get it.
That's actually fascinating. Because that makes me think of, like a fantasy story where you have your fighter who wants to be the greatest swordsman that ever lived.
Right.
And the GM has, maybe it's a friend of the fighter's, maybe it's just some mysterious man in a cloak. Who approaches and says, this is a powerful sword, and its legend will make you the greatest swordsman that ever lived. Do you want it? Because you know there's a catch.
Of course
there's a catch. And by the player accepting that, you know, if they say, yes, I'll take the sword and become the greatest swordsman that ever lived, they're basically telling the GM it's okay to hit me with this catch, whatever it is.
Yeah.
So the GM can use that to give them weird psychic powers or make them possessed by a demon or whatever he wants to do because the player has said it's okay.
Yeah.
That's kind of cool.
That is cool. Or you could take the classic sell your soul to the devil for some power or some item. Just like normally a player would be like, well, I'm not going to use my soul anyway. You know, it's a character. I don't care. Let's
depends on the players, but yeah, that's how a lot of players think.
So, and then you as the GM, you twist it so that soul that you don't have becomes extremely, extremely important.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, you go home after you make that deal and your wife and your kids can't stand you. They're like, there's just something wrong with him. I don't know what's going on. So they pack up and they leave. Mm-hmm. And, you know, your dealings with everybody, there's something off about you. So off that they can't stand to be in the same room as you.
Yeah.
And so you just lose contact with everybody. You lose your job. You know, all of a sudden, you've got this really cool thing that you bargained to the devil for, but you've got nothing else.
Yeah. You have that one thing. You're the greatest swordsman that ever lived, but, everybody runs from you. Nobody will feed you. You can't go into town because they run you out because they can see the mark of the beast or whatever.
Or you could be the greatest swordsman that ever lived, but everyone's so afraid of you that no one will challenge you, so you'll never get to demonstrate it.
Oh, that'd be cool. Because everybody knows.
Yeah.
So you never get in a sword fight.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
He's like, he's the greatest, run!
That's evil.
That's devious.
Yeah, it is.
That's definitely devious.
It's definitely devious. So you had me thinking of just the powerful technique that a GM could use to say, you know, because even if you run a sandbox game, you have ideas for things that you want to happen.
Right.
You know, like the game could go this way, the game could go that way. Man, I really hope, I want them to go to Miami because there's this thing that I've put in Miami and I want them to see it.
Okay.
Or I want them to start a mercenary group because, here's reasons and I have all these cool ideas to do if they start a mercenary group.
Okay.
So the GM always has these ideas, and what better way without railroading at all, what better way to encourage your players to accept your ideas than give them some kind of great reward? Give them what they want. Say, here, you know, your player wants such and such. Here's a +4 masterwork magic sword. Do this for me. You know, and what player would say no?
Yeah.
Because they'll all say yes.
It'd be very rare the player that
yeah,
would say no.
So just give them some great reward and they'll go right along with whatever you want them to do. That's cool.
That is cool. I'm gonna have to do that.
Yeah.
As soon as I start running a game again.
You are running a game. You're running a D&D game.
Oh, yeah, but that's only like once a month. Doesn't really count.
I thought you were just going to not count it because it was D&D. Anyway.
All right, let's move right on to Grease Monkey.
Sure.
I think we've done a lot for Paycheck.
Yeah, we have. We got more out of that than I thought we would.
Yeah. So we're going to revisit experience because there were some things that we wanted to touch on last episode that we weren't able to. So first off, we're going to go into pass-fail systems for experience in games such as Burning Wheel and Mouse Guard.
Have you played with pass-fail experience at all?
A little bit. I played a one-shot of Mouse Guard at Vegas Game Day.
All right.
And that was a lot of fun, and I kind of saw how it worked there, and I really dig it.
Yeah, it's kind of neat. The basic idea is if you have a sword skill, you need a number of successful uses of that sword skill and a number of failures with that sword skill so that you can learn from, say, 3 mistakes and learn from 3 successes. And once all those little boxes are checked off, your sword skill goes from like 3 to 4. And I think in Mouse Guard it actually is that simple. You have to have as many successes as your current skill, I believe, and as many failures as your current skill.
That sounds right.
Yeah, it's like that, or it's current +1 or something
like that, yeah.
But it's very, very basic. What I like is that you're not, you don't have this weird concept of my character has 25 XP, and I'm going to spend these 25 points on knowledge and demon lore and survival wilderness skills.
Right.
So I like that because XP has this weird feeling of like you get a bunch of money at the end of the game, and then you go spend that money to improve your sword skill and your survival skills.
Sometimes it can feel like that.
And it's kind of weird. So the fact that your sword skill gets better by using that sword skill is pretty cool.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
Yeah, and so it promotes, it actually encourages players to use, like if they want to get better in that skill, then use it. Find situations to apply it.
Right.
So I could talk to this guy, this guard, I could talk my way past, but I want to be the greatest swordsman that ever lived. So I think I know what I'm going to do.
You're going to slice his head off.
Absolutely. Or just disarm him and incapacitate him somehow. But, so that's kind of cool.
So if someone wanted to apply a pass-fail system to the game they're playing, because we're all about hacking games.
Absolutely.
And changing the rules to fit what we want to play, how would you do that? Like, we'll just take D&D because it's
pretty basic.
Probably the biggest one, yeah.
Well, you could do it like Mouse Guard or Burning Wheel and say that you need a number of successes and a number of failures with that skill. Or you could do it, actually one of the other things I want to talk about was the Call of Cthulhu system.
Okay.
And the Call of Cthulhu system is percentile based and basically says that every time you successfully use a skill, no matter what it is, there's like a little checkbox next to it.
Okay.
And you check that box. At the end of the session, you look at your sheet and you realize that you had, okay, here's the 10 skills that I successfully used in tonight's game, and then there were these other 5 that I failed at, but who cares? So I used these successfully. So any one of those 10 skills that you successfully used, you can increase.
Okay.
So if you...
Any one of them?
Any one of them. And Call of Cthulhu might actually say any 2 or any 3. I'm not sure. But you basically look at which skills you successfully pulled off, and then you get a number of increases each session.
That's kind of cool. I like that.
So that would be a very easy way to bring it into D&D. The only kind of problem that I see with that, not necessarily a problem I would have, but that some people might have, is that you can't get better for failing. Because in the Call of Cthulhu system, you learn nothing from failure.
Right. And in real life, we generally learn more from failing than we do from success.
I think failure teaches us a lot.
Yes, it does.
So if you wanted to look at D&D, I mean, the typical fighter has his athletic skill, his jump skill, and his swim skill, and that's it. And those are the skills he increases every level anyway.
Right.
And so they jump like a number of skill points every level, or in 3rd edition they just jump to 1 point. So an easy way to do that would be to say every time you use that skill, maybe you need 1 successful use and 1 failure, and then that skill just increases.
That'd be cool.
Or maybe you need, like, if your rating is 15, then it's the rating divided by 5. So you need 3 successful uses to increase it to 16. And then it's still 3 until you get up to 20, then it becomes 4.
Okay.
I mean, you could do something like that if you want to slow it down a little bit. It just depends on the pace.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's pretty easy to play with.
I think the way I'd do it is I'd keep the leveling mechanic, but I would just cut skill points out of the levels.
Mm-hmm.
And then just add those boxes, pass, fail, however many boxes they ended up needing to increase. That'd be cool. I think I might do that.
It's a pretty simple system. And I do like the idea that you learn your sword skill by swinging that sword.
Yeah.
So if you solve a puzzle box and get 20 XP for figuring out the puzzle box, or discovering an antidote to that guy's poison, you can't spend that 20 XP to level up as a fighter and become a better fighter.
Right.
Because it doesn't really apply.
Yeah, you weren't swinging a sword, you were doing a puzzle box.
Yeah. So now the only problem with bringing that into something like D&D would be that, swinging a sword isn't necessarily a skill.
Yeah.
But you could just apply that to just the skills, and I think you would still have a pretty fine little system.
Yeah, probably.
Say that your alchemy skill gets better by creating potions.
Sure.
Who would have thought?
I don't know. Next one is Fallout from Dogs in the Vineyard.
Fallout is a very weird concept for experience points, but very, very cool. And basically, at the end of any conflict, whether it's a verbal argument or a gunfight, you roll a number of dice. And these dice basically create the damage that's done to you.
Okay.
And you keep the 2 highest dice out of your big pool. So if we've been fighting in a drag out conflict for half an hour, I might have 10 dice of Fallout in my pool, and you might have 12. We roll them all, and we keep the 2 highest, and that becomes our Fallout score. So if my 2 highest dice add up to 18, I'm probably going to die, because that's a pretty big hit. And I have to pick something on this Fallout chart, and 18 means it's a severe wound. If your 2 highest dice on your 6 dice come up 8, then that's just a little piece of short-term Fallout, and you'll just have, like, a sore arm next time you get into a fight. Something like that.
Okay.
But the cool thing is that every single die that you roll that comes up a 1 in your Fallout pool, every single die that comes up a 1 actually allows you to choose one option from this experience list. Okay. And that option might be raise an attribute, or increase a skill, or bring in a new relationship, or get a new piece of equipment, or something like that. So the fascinating thing is that it actually encourages you to take more damage in combat or in a fight, because not only are you going to roll higher on your Fallout total and take a bigger wound afterwards, but you're also going to roll more 1s, and you're going to learn more from it. Okay. So it encourages you to take a lot of damage, but it also rewards you for all that damage that you're taking.
That's different.
It is different. To put it in D&D terms, it would be like every die of damage that's rolled against your character that comes up a 1 adds to damage, but teaches your character something. Like gives your character a skill point.
That makes sense
like that.
too.
Which would be it's a very interesting way to look at it. And it takes out the whole need for experience, because it brings the XP mechanic, and the character advancement evolves directly from the conflict that happens, which is kind of cool.
That is cool. I like that. I've only played Dogs once, and that was just a one-shot. So I think I'm going to have to take a closer look at that one.
You should, because it's definitely unique. And it works fantastically in Dogs in the Vineyard. To bring it into other games, I'm not sure exactly how you would do it. It would have to be, I mean, you could say that, you could simplify it and say every time your character takes a wound of this much. Well, actually, here's what you could do. If you wanted to adapt it straight on into D&D terms, keep your leveling mechanic and everything else.
All right.
You could say your character has 50 hit points. When your character receives 100 points of damage over the course of however many games, he levels up.
Okay.
So he's been in that many fights, and now he's finally gotten better. You know, and when your character, and you heal and stuff as you go, so it's not like your character's negative 50 hit points.
Of course.
It just means you'd have to basically be, you know, dropped effectively twice or something before you level up.
Sure.
So that would be a really easy way to do it. If you did like Spear of the Century, where you take consequences, long-term consequences and things like that, then maybe for every short-term consequence, you get this mild bonus to your character. He advances in this way. Every time you take a severe consequence, which is like a broken leg that's going to take a long time to heal, then your character learns this from it, and it's like he advances a lot more in this other way.
Sure.
So that would be kind of neat. And it encourages your players to get in there and mix it up.
Yeah. I could
cool.
see how that would work. It would take a little bit of playing around with it just to make sure it worked right, but yeah, that sounds cool.
But it's just an interesting option. If you wanted to do a very gritty, fantasy mercenary game, and it was all about players being in battle and learning and honing their skills through blood and violence, then saying that you level up every time you suffer 200 hit points would be absolutely the way to go.
Yeah, it would.
Because that reinforces exactly what you're trying to encourage at the game. It takes that theme that you were going for and totally makes it concrete.
Makes sense to me.
Which is what all the hacks are about, I think.
Yeah. Next one is Hypothesis from Alethea.
Alethea.
I have no idea what this is. I've never played this game.
All right, here you go. It's actually kind of cool. Alethea is a investigative X-Files game, basically. Okay. And it's about discovering the truth of the universe. All the unknown,
47.
Mysterious facts. 42.
Dang, got it wrong.
All the unknown mysterious facts of the universe are actually defined in the book and spelled out and linked together into this grand tapestry of the truth. And your players are investigators that are trying to discover this truth.
Okay.
The neat thing about XP in Aletheia is as you go from X-Files type strange phenomenon to other strange phenomenon, you're trying to piece things together and you're trying to say, okay, here's what happened here. This guy actually had psychic power and he took over that guy's mind and encouraged him to kill his wife. Or you get to this place and, okay, this was obviously a UFO landing, and that guy can't remember because there was a mind wipe that was done, and these cows are freaking out because the aliens really like cows.
Okay.
And they were doing cattle mutilation or whatever. So what's interesting in that game is that after you go and investigate and you find all your clues, then the players have like a little jam session where they create a hypothesis of exactly what happened there.
All right.
So once they say, okay, here's what happened, this is everything that happened. You know, this guy killed that guy, and this is why, and this is the weapon he used, and this is where he went afterwards, and this is why the body was found a mile away, and here's everything that happened. The GM then compares their hypothesis to his notes written down of what actually happened.
Okay.
And depending on how accurate they were in their hypothesis is how much XP they get.
That's kind of cool.
So for a detective game, that's a fantastic way to do it.
Yeah, it is.
Because you're trying to encourage creative thinking and investigation and piecing together different clues, and that's the behavior you want to reward at the table. So that's exactly how the characters get rewarded, because if their hypothesis is more accurate, they get more XP.
And they know how many points of XP they get?
Yes.
So they can judge how correct they are.
Absolutely.
By the
because the
amount of
GM will actually, it's in the rules, the GM will say, that's precisely correct, everybody gets 5 XP.
Okay.
Or he can say, that was completely wrong, everybody just gets 1 XP. You know, because you showed up for the session, but you were totally, totally wrong. And the GM, I think it might even be in the rules that the GM then brings in and tells you, you were wrong on this count, this count, this count, and this count.
Okay.
And so you as the player kind of know what happened, even though your character doesn't really know what happened.
Okay.
Which is neat. But so it makes me think of how useful it is to say, this is the game I want to play. I want to play a game about superheroes doing heroic things. So you should get XP for being heroic and being a superhero.
Of course.
You shouldn't get XP for having a job at McDonald's.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Unless you want to say it's also about superheroes fitting in with normal society and trying to have a normal life on the side.
Which could be a cool game.
Absolutely. Then you award some XP for him working at McDonald's.
Okay.
But basically you can use XP because it is a reward system for the players because they want to increase their character abilities. Then why not reward for the precise behavior you want to encourage?
Makes sense. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, if your D&D game is about killing monsters and taking their loot, then that's what they should get XP for. Not for puzzles, not for
right.
Starting up kingdoms, not for doing anything else, because that's not what your game is about.
That makes sense. That makes sense. Last one on our list is Spending Glory from Aegon.
Oh, this is pretty cool. Aegon's a Greek hero game, and basically everything you do in the game, because the game is about being glorious. It's about being an awesome hero of legend and having your name remembered for generations beyond your hero. So, in the game, everything you do basically earns you glory.
Okay.
So if you defeat a monster, you get glory. If you beat your friend in an arm wrestling match, you get glory. If the GM creates a monster and puts him on the table, that monster has been paid for with X amount of glory.
Okay.
Because the GM starts the game with a number of points. And each session, he has to draw from that point pool to create all your antagonists and adversaries.
From the GM budget.
From the GM budget, absolutely. So he has 180 points total for this session, and he creates a 60-point monster. And you get in there and fight that 60-point monster. And at the end, those 60 points that the GM used to create it are divided amongst the players to award them glory.
All right.
Every time your character gets 10 points of glory, he earns an advance. And with a number of advances, very similar to like Savage Worlds or whatever from that point on. So with a number of advances, then he can increase his skills and do all this stuff. So the neat thing is that the game is about being glorious. So we give you glory points. And then when you get so many glory points, your character gets better. So again, we're encouraging you to do exactly what the game's about.
Right.
Which is to be glorious.
Which is cool.
One thing that's interesting in Aegon is that glory comes in a few different ways. Okay. So if you're trying to climb this treacherous mountain that can't be climbed so you can get to the magic sword at the top, that treacherous mountain might be worth 12 glory. Every hero rolls, and they're all trying to get up there, but one guy's trying to get there first. And that guy that gets there first, like everybody gets 1 glory for climbing the mountain. But the guy who climbs the mountain the best, or gets there first, or fastest, depending on how you look at it in the story, he actually gets that stack of 12 glory.
Okay.
So his character advances faster because he's more glorious.
Of course, as it should be.
So it actually, absolutely. And it actually encourages a little bit of playful competition, and that's kind of neat. So your character isn't getting, because the game hands out glory for kind of any type of adversity, you're not just getting XP for killing monsters, right, because you can also get glory for climbing mountains.
Okay.
What else is interesting is that players can start their own competitions anytime they want. So
right, I do remember doing that.
Yeah, so one player can turn to the other and say, "There's our boat. I bet I can get that. I bet I can get to that boat before you can. Let's have a foot race." They roll out a quick foot race, and somebody gets a glory, and somebody doesn't, and that doesn't even come out of the GM budget. So nice. For all these friendly competitions, they're actually earning glory that's going to go to XP, which is pretty cool.
That is cool. I like that. I remember I've played Aegon a couple times. Never actually got to finish a game due to various circumstances, but Aegon's a lot of fun.
It is pretty fun. So with all these marvelous XP systems, we've talked about, like, you know, whether we like to level or whether we like to spend XP as we go.
Right.
And we talked about having XP as opposed to not having it and just having characters be cool to start with.
Right.
So there's a lot of XP systems out there.
There are.
Which one do I use?
Whichever one seems to, I think you should use whichever one would seem to fit the story you're trying to tell, because you don't even have to use the one that's in the system, or you don't have to use one that's easy to transport in the system, because if you throw out rules, they're pretty much all easy to port from one system to the other.
They really are.
It's just going to take a little bit of work, maybe half an hour, of sitting down and figuring out exactly how it's going to work at each level, or after each game session, or whatever. But I think you do need to think about the kind of story you're going to tell, and you need to think about the kind of stories the players want to tell, and then find something that would fit the game experience that you're trying to have.
That was a loaded question and kind of a test, Evan, and you passed wonderfully.
Awesome.
You did a really good job. I think the point of us talking about experience, sometimes we'll bring in like a rules hack or technique that we've used that might, you know, speed up your game or whatever. And with XP, we seem to have basically just said, look at all these systems out here. There's a lot of options before you.
Yeah, there are.
And all these role-playing games work.
They do.
People have been playing Call of Cthulhu for a very long time. People have played D&D for a very long time. People play White Wolf. People play all these games. And they have a lot of different XP systems, and nobody really minds. They all work.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the whole point here is take some time to consider the type of game that you're trying to run, or the type of behavior in the game that you're trying to encourage, and think about how make XP an active part of that instead of just something that's tacked on.
Definitely.
Yeah, take some time to say, how can I have the experience system in my game actually support what I want my game to do?
How can you have it add to the game instead of being a distracting
element? Yes, and sometimes it's a distracting element, because sometimes if I'm in the middle of a dungeon and I kill a rat, and then all of a sudden my fighter, or better yet, my wizard, right? This would be awesome. So you kill a rat and get that last point of XP that you need, and all of a sudden your wizard levels up, and now you can cast 9th level spells. Because you killed that rat? So now all of a sudden you can open dimension doors and crazy things? That's
that
weird.
doesn't make sense.
Not really.
Yeah, it doesn't. Not really.
Not really. So yeah, give some thought. And if you want to create some kind of over-the-top fantasy game, then maybe that's the way to go. If you want something a little more realistic or a little grittier, then maybe not.
Yep. All right. Well, I think that does it for me.
Me too.
All right. We'll just wrap this episode up then. It's episode 4, Sharkbone. Feel free to contact us. Email us at sharkbonecast@gmail.com with any topic suggestions or just to say hi. If you also see us on Gmail chat, hit us up. And if you don't have the HTTP address or the web address for Sharkbone, which would be strange if you didn't, but it's http:// why do I even put that in?
I don't know.
It's sharkbone.libsyn.com.
Absolutely.
Come visit us. Comment on the blog. Whatever. I don't care. I'm just talking, and I'm talking too much. So I'm going to sign off.
That would be a good idea. Take it easy, guys.